So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jill Nogueras. I'm the K-12 English Coordinator here at the Virginia Department of Education, and I am joined by many of my colleagues this afternoon as we explore assessment supports for 2020-2021. This webinar series is actually the combined efforts of both the instruction and assessment teams. So I do have my colleagues from instruction, Carmen Keurig and Colleen Cassida, monitoring the chat for any of your instruction questions that you may have as we go through today's webinar. And then from the assessment side, I have several friends and colleagues. Lauren Zielinski is with us and will be facilitating the majority of this presentation as we look at assessment supports for the 2020-2021 reading assessments. But joining her, we also have Assessment Coordinator Melody Bushley, Assessment Specialist Catherine Ringley, and Assessment Specialist Chris Sarah, who are all on the chat monitoring for any assessment questions you may have. So please know that we have multiple people on hand to support you as we go through our time together today. And just a couple of things before I kind of pass this over to Lauren. Just want everybody to know that per usual, we are using the chat feature for any questions you may have. This helps us collect the questions and the responses. And as you're submitting your questions, if you could please, using the drop down, switch over to all attendees. That way everyone sees your question and your answer so that everybody gets the same support and some of the same answers aren't just shared over and over because many of you have the same questions. So we're really excited that you could join us today. This is really exciting as we move to our tests that are newly aligned to the 2017 English Standards of Learning. And many of you registered and signed up for this before we included the grade level webinars. So while we will have the links for those for you at the end, I do want to make sure that everybody understands that today's webinar is a global overview of assessment supports. And then following later in the month of October, we will have a specific grade level webinar scheduled for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and of course reading respectively to go through specifics to support each of those grade levels. So again, this is the global overview. It'll give you some guidance and it will help you use all of those individual webinars and materials within your classrooms. But this is just to give an overview and kind of an all-encompassing support before we get into the nitty-gritty of each of the grade levels. So I am going to turn this over to Lauren and we'll kind of do some back and forth as we're going through the presentation today to support you as we go along. So Lauren, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. It is an absolute pleasure to be able to spend some time with all of you this afternoon. As Jill noted, both our Office of Assessment and the Department of Learning have had the amazing task of collaborating together and bringing you this webinar. So thank you so much again for joining us. Before we jump into all of the different supports that we have put together for this, we did want to make sure that everyone was aware and knows about the support and the guidance through the Recover, Redesign, and Restart document. As noted on the screen, you can see on June 9th, 2020, Governor Northam announced a phased reopening plan for Virginia schools. During this press conference, Dr. Lane, Superintendent of Schools, shared the guidance from the document. You see it's hyperlinked here, and you'll see it again later in a resource section. But we really wanted to highlight this as we started this presentation because it did give us a lot of information and ways to help support you. As you can see, for example, within the instruction section of this document, there is a lot of information that can be found on implementing authentic text. And on that next slide, we have actually pulled for you a quote talking about exactly what authentic learning is. And this really was the springboard for where a lot of our information came from in terms of trying to really give you authentic learning experiences, authentic text, and authentic ways to really support the implementation of the 2017 standards of learning. As you can see here, it says teachers should seek to design and implement authentic learning experiences. Authentic learning is a term used to describe instructional strategies that are designed to connect the subjects students are taught in the school with the real world. So we really wanted to make sure that what we presented to you today would do just that and would align with this information from the Recover, Redesign, Restart document. Some additional information that we wanted to let you know about is that this presentation was designed to help support the instruction and the implementation of the 2017 standards. This presentation has been developed to give you specific examples of the SOL content and especially the progression of the reading skills. While some of this information did indeed come from the interviews that were conducted in the 2018-2019 year, we do want you to know that you can still access that information and refer to that webinar, as that also gave us a lot of guidance on how to best support and what supports to present to you today. We do want to note that the assessment questions provided in this or any of the individual grade level webinars that are presented are not meant to mimic the SOL test questions, but they are intended to provide further insight and suggested supports for your classroom. Additionally, it is important to keep the content of this presentation in perspective. The information provided here should be used as supplemental information to support the implementation of the 2017 standards. Please remember that you do want your instruction to remain on the standards as a whole through the use and selection of authentic text, so then all of those skills can be reviewed and introduced to the children as they are in the text. So we also wanted to remind everyone, as I'm sure you are familiar with the curriculum framework, but when implementing our new standards, the curriculum framework truly is an important document to be familiar with and use regularly. As stated in the framework, the concept, skills, and content in English language arts spiral. Teachers should note each grade level builds skills that carry to the following grades. So essentially, the heart of this presentation is going to support that spiraling, the scaffolding, and that progression. So then at the end of the day, students are able to apply those skills in any authentic text that is given to them. So I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when large tasks are given to me, it's really a lot easier to achieve and attain those tasks and those goals when things are sort of broken down into smaller steps. So that's how we approached this presentation in terms of taking that large goal of implementing those 2017 standards and breaking it down into 4 manageable and hopefully applicable steps that can be used within your classroom. Within step 1, we started with selecting that authentic text. You really want to make sure that the passages that are used for instruction are indeed grade level appropriate. They provide the support to scaffold, to introduce, and to review those skills, and that they do allow for opportunities for formative and summative review. Once that authentic text has been picked, you then want to truly, in step 2, examine the content and the progression of the skills. Where were students last year? Where should they be this year? And where are they going? That truly helps target your outcomes. In step 3, we gave you some sample question starters. Remember that questions always should be asked before, during, and after instruction. You always want to bring the kiddos back to the text to align with that progression and to support what students know, what they've mastered, what they need to know. And the questions absolutely need to tie back into writing about what they read and also being able to draw from that text for support And then we provided step 4, where beyond what we've given you as resources here, you can use different authentic grade level texts that are engaging, that they vary in genre, and you can continue to introduce and review those new skills over and over again for your students. So let's dive a little bit deeper into each one of these steps, and let's start with step 1, where we need to select that authentic text. Without a text aligned to its specific purpose, it's going to be very difficult to introduce or review skills. Therefore, make sure when you're selecting that authentic text, this truly gets a lot of attention from you and really you know that purpose. So make sure that you review the text to ensure that it supports your identified purpose for reading. Set that purpose right from the beginning for yourself, for your students, for everybody involved. When you identify those skills that need to be reviewed and introduced, it supports student comprehension and it supports that the text is truly meeting the needs of the kiddos. You want to read beforehand and locate those examples of the skills that are supporting the purpose that you identified and that support previously taught skills. So then everything is a continued work in progress for the students and they're continuing to apply those skills in any and all texts possible. Once you have identified and located those examples, then you just have to ask yourself that hard question. Does the passage support the identified skills? Does it include the focus that the desired skills needs from instruction at this point? If other reading skills are found, like we just talked about, absolutely continue to bring those up. You don't want to teach it once and continue to move forward and teach things in isolation. You constantly want to give students the opportunity to apply what has been learned and what they will continue to learn. Always make sure that your passage supports guiding questions so then it provides the necessary background so then that does not cause a hindrance for student comprehension, engagement, or application of the skills. And ultimately, once you kind of asked yourself that question, does this support where I need to go with my students? Then either you use that passage and continue forward and use that as your instructional support, or you realize this might not be the best text, so I'm going to go ahead, start my process over, find a new passage, and then present that to my students. We want to make sure, just like how Jill started today and said we want to honor our time today here together, you want to honor the time you have in front of your students to ensure that they get the most information out of what is presented to them each and every day. So while today we are presenting a more high-level overview, please know that within each of the grade level presentations and the resources that will be later on the website, with the Department of Learning, we have found several different grade level authentic passages to provide for you to see what we are talking about in terms of finding authentic text. We have provided annotations on those texts for you, where we're giving you a note of explanation on how, you know, this paragraph or this quote or this description can truly complement the different skills within that passage to support student learning. And within those annotations, we have also provided some instructional guiding questions to ensure that there is rich discussion and to ensure that students are comprehending what they're reading and applying the skills that you are desiring of them to apply. As you can see in this next slide, we wanted to just show you an example. This is an example from a grade 7 text, but we wanted you just to see what we were kind of talking about with those annotations. As you can see to the right-hand side, you know, we gave you a little bit of background based on the details from paragraph 6. Students can infer what further research and development was needed to be focused on to improve the gliders. And then we gave you some questions or a question to sort of help facilitate that discussion. So hopefully through these annotations and through the text provided, they will give you a great springboard on how to truly use that authentic text and how to incorporate and spiral your skills for your students so they are continuing to build and exemplify mastery throughout the reading.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, so step 2 is examining the content and progression of standards. And so if we're talking about the 2017 standards, there are some major shifts and changes as we have aligned our content to what is in the current standards. So it's going to be really important to use the curriculum framework and the progression charts as you are determining how you are going to address skills in your classroom. This year, or over your computer if that's where you find yourselves this fall. It's going to be really important to look, especially this year, at what the previous grade level expectations were and what missed learning opportunities might present themselves for material that you might need to fold into your current instruction, but also to show you what the student has learned. We did miss a good 10 weeks of school, but our students were in school with really phenomenal teachers before that. So they did learn some stuff last year. So how can we maximize that and look at the learning and figure out how we can make students feel confident as we're folding in that missed material and that new learning with what they already know? How can they feel good, some easy wins as we're looking at those grade level expectations? And then look at the grade level expectation in front of us, those standards. What do the students need to learn? And I know I have talked about this many times as we've gone across the state. We find ourselves in a really interesting position every time we switch standards, because standards are written starting with kindergarten and moving to 12th grade. So changes that we've shifted in kindergarten, the expectation for learning is demonstrated in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, with the understanding that a student has started in kindergarten and moved all the way up there under the 2017 standards of learning. And we all know that our students sit in various grade levels and have various experiences with the 2017 standards of learning. So thinking about, you know, what our students need to know, for some of them is going to be a jump forward in terms of expectations. But then also looking, because you do have a variety of students in your classroom, but how can we prepare our students for what they need to know next? And some of that comes with this idea of kind of jumping from 2010 to 2017. Some of these shifts are bigger in nature. So what can I do this year that will support my students so that they are better positioned when they get into the next year of learning and have an even greater jump to make? Also wanted to talk specifically about the curriculum framework and the kind of support that is offered there. I bring this up because we talk about aligning all of our instruction to the standards, and we talk about our SOL reading assessments being aligned to the standards. And if you were to look at a blueprint and you looked, this is just one of many examples, 6.6b, 7.6g, and 8.6h all read the same. They read identify main idea. But what that looks like in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are all different. And what that looks like down where we first see identify main idea presented in 1st grade looks very different. So there is a significant shift in what we expect our 5th graders to be able to do between 5th and 6th grade when it comes to looking at the main idea. And then as we move forward. So please make sure that you are looking at that curriculum framework, because the essential knowledge, skills, and processes really give you some support. For example, in the 7th grade curriculum framework, when we're talking about main idea, we specifically have a bullet that reads, determine the central idea and analyze its development over the course of the text. Well, that's a little bit more than identifying the main idea. So when we dig a little deeper into the curriculum framework to understand what that means for 7th grade, if we're fully teaching the standard, We are looking at the development of the main idea over the course of the text. And what do I need to do to instruct my students to be able to do that on their own? All right, because when they take that assessment, we are not there to hold their hands anymore. So it's not just about finding the main idea, it's about analyzing that text and figuring out how I got here. How can I use my understanding of text and reading comprehension to analyze this text to determine the main idea? So understanding that we need to look very deeply at the curriculum framework and look at the previous year and at the year following will definitely help us ensure that instruction is fully aligned to the standards. So we have to go beyond that top line to get the information that we need to fully support our students. Also kind of want to take some time right here to talk to you about what you're going to see in the upcoming presentations that we have scheduled for the month of October. And I bring this up in this one because while we are covering different standards of learning and question styles for standards of learning at different grade levels, the specific grade level webinars are really going to support everyone. So please know, I just want to spend some time right here. For instance, as you can see in grade 3, the supports will be on making, confirming, and revising predictions, identifying the narrator, asking and answering questions. And then when you look into nonfiction, we're going to be talking about text features, inferences, and main idea. But when you look over at grade 4, we're hitting some very different topics: conflict and resolution, sensory words, comparing and contrasting details, and then in nonfiction, looking at author's purpose, summarizing supporting details, and fact and opinion. I bring this up because I may be a 4th grade teacher who tunes in for the 4th grade webinar, but I might find that if I go back and look at either, well, I could join the 3rd grade webinar, or I could look at the recording or the PowerPoint and support materials, because while I may teach a different grade level, I may find some skills and learn something more about annotating text or looking at question stems that get at some of the topics that were not mentioned in the grade level webinar that I was present for, but that may help me or a teacher nearby if I'm looking at another grade level. So we wanted to make sure that in this presentation, we covered all of the topics that will be presented in each of the grade level presentations, so that you know you can always refer back to another grade level to get some ideas of question stems or material or skill development that is covered in each of them. So looking at grade 5, we're going to talk about vocabulary and context and compare and contrast details. And for nonfiction, we're also going to hit vocabulary and context, look at those text features, and address the issue of cause and effect. When we hit 6th grade, in fiction, we're going to look at plot elements, theme, character development, and then in nonfiction, we'll be looking at main idea, summary and details, and inferences. So again, while we do invite you to attend the webinar that is grade level specific for you, you may find some supporting materials in some of the other grade levels. Laura, would you like to talk about 7 and 8?
Absolutely. As Jill absolutely has discussed, we did want to cover a wide array of skills while also providing supports through both fiction and nonfiction texts. So not only could the authentic text with annotations be observed just in one genre, but there's multiple. And additionally, in both 8th grade and in 5th grade, there has been supports for paired passages in both of those grade levels. And like Jill was just discussing, simply because grade 5 has a pair, but grade 6 has 2 individual passages, doesn't mean that a grade 6 or 7 teacher couldn't still view the grade 5 PowerPoint and the grade 5 webinar for the sake of getting ideas to then apply at grade level for those skills. So we really do hope And our desire is that through these presentations and through the array of skills that are provided, it truly does give that alignment and that support for whatever grade level you are approaching that presentation from. So remember, grade 5 and 8 do have the paired passages support for you. All grade levels 3 through 8 do have a fiction and a nonfiction passage, but then in end of course, we provided 2 nonfiction passages specific to the newer alignment in 2017 with technical text, because we wanted to support that genre for the field. And we also just wanted to touch base and remind everyone that though you will see in this presentation and in the end of course presentation, the alignment to the grade 11 skill, as discussed within the 2017 end of course blueprints, it says all SOL listed in the blueprint are eligible for inclusion on each version of an SOL test. Some reading skills are repeated across grades 9, 10, and 11. Those SOL should be taught across all grades and will be assessed at the highest appropriate standard. And sometimes the 10th grade is your highest standard, or the 9th grade, or the 11th grade. So please know that just because you see the 11th grade SOL, there is still that progression and alignment from step 2 that Jill just talked about to really ensure that students are mastering the skill at the appropriate level. So we do look forward to you guys joining in on all of those webinars too. So essentially at this point, based on our steps that we have provided for you, we have selected an authentic text. We have observed our skill or skills progression throughout the grades. But now we really need to make sure that we have those questions, those writing ideas to really support student learning. So today we'll show you a few overview question starters, but we really wanted to provide this tool for you because it truly does reinforce our skills. Having students write about what they read about is truly a great way to determine, have the students understood not only the reading passage, but can they apply the skill? Additionally, if you can evaluate those skills through formative and/or summative assessments, then you are truly ensuring where your students are at, how to remediate the skill, how to reteach the skill, or knowing that you can move forward introducing new skills while still reviewing the old. We strongly encourage the idea of implementing the grade level and skill aligned vocabulary, even just when you are speaking to the students in the class. Instead of saying something like, as you see on the screen, where does the story take place? Instead, we want to replace that with, what is the setting of the story? Setting is that key term and the skill from the SOL, and setting is the skill that we want them to know. Yes, where it takes place is a part of setting, but using that appropriate vocabulary really just helps set the students up for success. Instead of saying, what could be added to the story? Let's add in what details should be added to support the purpose of the story, and just align that questioning, align that talking to your students with the vocabulary from the curriculum framework, the essential skills and knowledge through all of that. We really want to help set our kids up for success. And the great thing about these question starters is that they can be applied across grade levels. You might need to tweak them a little bit to bring them up or down to the appropriate grade level, but honestly, these are so versatile. Here in front of you are 4 different examples, and again, you'll see more within each grade level, but these are just some examples of question starters that encourage writing about what was read. Identify and explain the conflict and resolution from whatever you just read, and you want them to include specific details from the text to support their answer. And the other piece that's really great about whether it's a question starter for writing about what was read, an open-ended question, a multiple choice question, a lot of times you can replace the one skill with another. For example, in that first one, where it says identify and explain the conflict and resolution, They could also identify and explain the rising action, the climax. There's so many different ways to approach how this skill could be addressed and how this starter could help support so many different skills. If you go down to that last example where it says, what does this selection select about or suggest about? There's so many different skills that could be inserted into there, whether it's a detail, character development, what does this suggestion about, and then insert a claim that you want them to prove. So these are just meant to be extremely supportive. And again, why it was important for Jill to talk about what is covered in the different grades. So then you could know, oh, hey, there is a fact and opinion in grade 4, but I teach grade 6. So I'm going to go there and then tweak that starter how I need it to support my students. We also included today, so you all could see that we not only have those writing about what you read sample starters, but we also have different ways to have it addressed through open-ended questions, through what could be turned into a multiple choice question. And again, these same ideas of tweaking them to be grade level appropriate and to be skill appropriate is wonderful. In that third example, we have which sentence expresses an idea shared by the author, or if you have a paired text, just go ahead and turn that into shared by the authors. There's so many different ways to adjust these starters to meet the needs that are presented with your specific population and students. So it's really great. And in that last example, the last slide of examples we have, again, that it says which question is answered in the story. Identify the conflict from. Okay, you don't need a conflict question, but you need a different plot element. So insert that instead. Identify the blank from and whatever you just read. So we really hope that you find these to be great ways to support and foster discussion and to really just ensure that students are able to apply their knowledge in many, many different ways and across all the grade levels for some consistency and ensuring that they're progressing as the standard support.
All right, and then the last step is to explore instructional resources that we have available for you to, once you've done some of this formative assessment with your students and ask them some questions and given them the opportunity to write or give a response as to what they think regarding these questions, just some follow-up support that you could use so that we're not starting from scratch or going back to the drawing board, but looking for instructional resources that are aligned to this 2017 standards of learning that can really get at and hone in on some of the skills that you're looking at. And we will explore these more in depth when we get into the grade level presentations and talk about, which ones to use to address whatever skills we're trying to get at. But just kind of want to remind you of some of the materials that are available. We do have instructional plans, and actually for those of you who are aware of our instructional plans, we did add quietly, very quietly, we added several more, many more at the end of this summer. So there are new materials posted there. There is nothing to show that they're new, I guess, but please, if you've checked those out, go back and look. We have beefed up several sections there. So please go back. We added a bunch more. We've added an argument piece about performance assessments. We've added quite a few pieces to look at vocabulary and everything to kind of support the pieces that were missing from our last round of instructional plans. But they were all written by Virginia teachers who are very well versed. Many of them supported the development of the 2017 standards of learning and helped us create these resources. So if you were to go to the site, you would see that we have them broken down by strands, so each of the 4 strands, so communication, multimodal literacy, reading, writing, research, and then the acknowledgments that are there. And these are just screenshots because anytime we ever leave a PowerPoint to take you out to the wild, wild web, we have issues. So I am just showing you a screenshot, but you will have the links in this presentation to help you get to that page as well so that you can look at what is available. And this just kind of shows you, this is just a snapshot of a piece of one of the sections when we're talking about plans under fiction and how they're broken out by grade bands. And what you'll see is that the overarching standard is there. But what we really tried to do was to provide instructional resources that align with the more rigorous standards that are newer, not standards that we've had since the 90s, but standards that are newer to our skill set and what we're trying to ask our students to be able to do. So just looking at a screenshot of one of these, I have an elementary one on the left and a secondary high school one on the right, but this is just a snapshot of the first little bit of a page of each of these plans. And please keep in mind that these are free-flowing plans. They're designed to be a support, but you by no means have to do them in their entirety or piece by piece. You can take what you like. You can throw out what you don't. You can switch the texts to align with text that you have available. Many of the resources that were selected here to be used for text come from commonlit.org because we are provided with copyright-free material that we have permission to use that is familiar to a lot of teachers and provides them with a text they can use even if they don't have a certain book available to them. So what you will see is that these instructional plans are not lesson plans. In fact, if anything, they are closer to unit plans because very few of them are done within one class period. They get really in depth to what we want our students to be able to understand and really walk you through. So there's always a primary SOL attached to these plans, but we always have reinforced standards of learning because it is impossible to teach one aspect of English language arts without getting into some of these others. So there's always a primary one thing that we're really targeting, but obviously we're going to see some integrated strands as well. And then as we go through those, you'll see complete plans of how you could use these to support students. We also look at differentiation, background students might need, how we might make some modifications or accommodations for students with disabilities or English language learners, or how we could apply different texts to the same thing. And some of the newer plans also look at how to make these plans work in a virtual environment. So I'm really excited about the plans here, but then also the materials that we will be showing you in the upcoming assessment webinars, because they really are versatile and can be used no matter what platform we are using for instruction this year. So I love that a lot of the question stems are open-ended and provide an opportunity for students to write in a discussion board, get on Padlet and write a thought back to a teacher, and can be used formatively as teachers are really trying to gauge what their students know and don't know and what can be done. So this by no means is anything that anybody has to wait until they are in front of students to actually use. It's something you can start using as you are looking at your classes for tomorrow. Lauren, would you like to address some of these final thoughts?
I sure can. I hope that through these 4 steps, and we hope that through these 4 steps, it will help to support the idea and the desire of having curriculum, instruction, and assessment aligned to yield the desired outcomes from students and to ensure that they are understanding the skills presented. For example, with those question stems or with the authentic text, it really just lends itself to so many different points of discussion to where, maybe you're asking them a question about cause and effect or about summary, but then through that fostered discussion, you're able to tie back in several other skills that can truly assure that everything is aligned, that students are truly applying what they have learned, and that they can take that skill from text to text and be successful. So hopefully these 4 steps are able to really support that and that it can be applied within all of your classrooms. We did want to remind everybody that all of the grade level presentations that will be happening throughout this month are indeed aligned to the 2017 standards of learning, and that it is the hope that they can be implemented within and across grade levels. Again, tweaking what you need to be grade level appropriate and to be skill or skill-based appropriate, because you do want to constantly be spiraling those skills and making sure that students can indeed use more than one skill at a time to truly comprehend and understand the text in front of them. And we really just wanted to remind you one more time about the importance of the 2017 curriculum framework, the progression charts, and those English instructional plans, just to name a few, because they truly will help to ensure that the correct rigor is being brought to the table, that you know where your student has been, should be, and could be going, and really just gives additional ways to apply or remediate or tier different strategies for your specific needs within your classroom. So we hope that these 4 skills or these 4 steps can really support the implementation of the 2017 standards of learning within each of your classrooms.
Thank you, Lauren. So word on the street is that our website is a little cumbersome and a little difficult to use. And since this is a collaboration between instruction and assessment, we wanted to make sure that you had access to all of the supporting materials that are available on our website, but that you may have to go searching for and digging between instruction and assessment to try to find. So we have made sure that we've included links at the end of this presentation, which will be posted with the recording of the webinar. The PowerPoint will be posted, so you will have these links. All of the most helpful information that we could find as we went digging through our own site for you. So what you have here are the updated blueprints that align to the 2017 standards of learning. Because as you know by now, this spring's assessment, so spring for 2021, the reading test will be aligned to the 2017 standards. I know it's been a really crazy transition. We were supposed to assess using these standards last spring, and then we all know what happened there. So we're giving it another go here, and want to call your attention that the blueprints that were posted and that everybody's forgotten about since life seemed to have paused starting in March are available and here to support you as you're, completing your instructional plans for the year. In addition to that, we also have the progression charts. They can be found at the end of the curriculum framework, but they are also by themselves as well. And then, of course, the curriculum framework and the standards of learning. Then we also wanted to tie in some of the assessment pieces that we think would be helpful for you to review and look at as you are making decisions for your division or your students or your classroom. We've included a link to the information about computer adaptive testing, because as you know, grades 3 through 8 are under a computer adaptive model. We've also included some information that's a comparison of a passage-based computer adaptive test and what we refer to as the traditional test, which our end of course test still falls under. But those of you who have been in the classroom for a while remember our traditional tests even in grades 3 through 8. So for you to have a truly good handle on what the difference is, we've included that. We also have, links here to get to the other assessment supports webinars that are noted by grade level, which you'll have the registration links at the end of this as well. And then a link to the Recover, Redesign, and Restart 2020. We've also included frequently asked questions about passage-based CAT testing for those of you who would like more information on that. Note that the SOL practice items in TestNav 8 have all been updated to align to the 2017 standards of learning and are really important for you to go in. But please note that the purpose of those practice items truly is to learn about how to use TestNav 8. They're not really there to be questions that mimic those about the 2017 standards. You are better off kind of looking at our grade level material and the instructional support that we're offering through this webinar series to help you prepare your students for grade level text and grade level questions. Those practice items truly are to learn the functionality of TestNav 8. We've also, while we sadly do not get to spend our fall running around the state with you all to do some deeper learning conferences, we are trying to make up for that through our webinars that we've been hosting weekly. But we do have 2 years of SOL Institute / Deeper Learning Conference presentations that are completely aligned to the 2017 standards of learning that are posted on our website for your use. And because we're talking about the crosswalk year, for 2018, many people were not in a position to start using the 2017 standards. They were really still working with 2010. So it might be helpful for you to go back and take a look at those presentations. You might find that there's a wealth of resources there to support you as you're going through. And then, of course, a link to our English instructional plans. And then most recently, Superintendent's Memo 249-20, which is just reminding everyone about our new standards of learning tests in reading and how we will be implementing those in spring of 2021. So again, these are all pieces that you would have to hunt on 15 different individual pages to find. So we have included all of them for you here at the end as a resource. And we will include these in our grade level presentations too, so that grade level teachers can, have the same access as well. But we wanted to put them all in one spot for you. Additionally, these are the dates and the times, also registration links. So when this does post and you get this, you'll be able to use these registration links. But these are the dates and the times for each of the grade level assessment support webinars. So we encourage you to share this widely with anyone who may be interested. I don't know if, maybe this could substitute instead of a faculty meeting one day or a grade level PLC. But just know that if your teachers are unable to join us for any of these, we will be recording and posting each of these, and the annotated materials with all of the questions and everything, the support that goes with that, will all be posted with those webinars at the end. So if you can't join us live, though we love when you do, if you can't join us live, you will still have access to this material and it will remain on our website. So please, please, please share this with anyone you know who thinks that they might benefit from getting some materials that they could use instructionally this year. And again, each grade level is kind of hitting different topics, which we talked about earlier. So if you are, say, an elementary school reading specialist, I'm not sure if you've decided you need to attend the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade webinars. Maybe you want to hit one of them and then just look at the support materials for the other 2 afterwards, because you kind of have the structure of what we're doing. That is entirely up to you and what works best for you, but just wanted to let you know what topics will be covered in each one and the days and times for each of these. Obviously, we want to share our contact information here at the end. So if you have any specific questions that you would like to reach out, if you have a question for the Office of Student Assessment, this is how you can reach them and their phone number. And then as you can see here, we have the contact information for myself, Carmen, and Colleen if you have any specific questions about a particular grade level or how to handle something instructionally as you are supporting students this year. But we want to thank you for your time. We're really excited that you took the time to be here with us today. And again, we look forward to having you with us starting October 13th. That's when we're hitting grade 3. So just please know that we're really, really excited about this and showing you what we have to offer and kind of showing you some of these grade level passages. So we hope you can join us, and we hope you spread the word. Lauren, do you have anything else before we wrap up?
I just want to echo your thanks to everyone for joining us, and absolutely please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions about what we talked about today or as the individual grade levels are posted afterwards. We're always here to support both offices. We support each other, and we absolutely support you. So thank you again for tuning in, and we truly hope that this helps to align and to implement those 2017 standards into your daily lessons.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon.